As a wise man once said, if you don't have thalassophobia, you're a fucking moron. I was that wise man, this is my quote. Water in general seems to scare the shit out of a lot of people. I mean, kids are out here thinking that a shark is gonna somehow show up in an indoor swimming pool. Now extrapolate that to the scale of an entire ocean, and it's no wonder people are terrified of this shit. You know, here on land, things mostly make sense, but the ocean looked at a million creatures and went, I'm feeling lucky. Like, what the fuck is an electric eel? What is that? Like, at some point evolution just went, just give it lightning or something, I don't know. The point is, the ocean is a weird, foreign, and unpleasant place to be, and thus it's an excellent but underutilized setting for gaming, with one major exception. Subnautica, a scenic survival game to some, and a source of trauma for others. Now, I'm sure most of you have heard of Subnautica, whether it be from YouTube clips or word of mouth, or if it, I don't know, somehow came to you in a dream, however it is that you find out about your games. This just seems to be one of those games that everybody's heard of one way or another. And in my opinion, for great reason, there's just literally nothing else like this game out there. So today I'm diving back in to see how it's aged, because believe it or not, it's been 11 years now since this game hit early access. So whether you've played this game 100 times or you've never touched it, there's more to this game than you'd think. So without further ado, let's hop into Subnautica.
Launch in 3, 2, 1.
The game opens with you scrambling onto a life pod. What happened to the ship? We'll get back to that later. For now, all you need to know is, your ship is scrap metal, you have CTE, everyone you worked with for years is definitely dead, and you're alone in the middle of an ocean. Great start. While the game never explicitly tells you any of this, you play as a character named Riley Robinson, who looks like a fucking dork. This, however, has an in-world explanation. Riley was the ship's IT worker, and not even a cool one who worked on the ship's engine or something. He's a part of the non-essential maintenance, meaning this dude's entire existence was changing light bulbs or putting more paper in the office printer. Being stranded in the ocean is a notable improvement. And man, just looking around, it is a absolutely gorgeous ocean, which brings us to this game's killer presentation value. Now, Subnautica strikes an excellent balance between cartoonish and realistic, and I mean, some settings are just stunning. But here's the thing, this game's 11 years old now, and it's beginning to show. And unfortunately, the biggest offender are the shaders. Instead of modern light tracing, Subnautica uses these aggressive color filters to simulate how light penetrates water. This ranges from fine to okay, but in some spots, it straight up looks like ass. Now, most games in some capacity do use shaders, but it should never be this noticeable. Swimming just a few feet forward just shouldn't change the light this much. And I mean, look, I'm no lightologist here, if that's is that the word for that? That's probably not the word for that, but I'm sticking with it. I'm no lightologist here, but I feel like that's not how that works. Now let's take this location here. It's got a brown, dusty look to it to sell the idea that the crash site kicked up a lot of sand, and it looks pretty cool. Move a few feet back and it's weirdly blue all of the sudden? This is weird. But where today's Subnautica is beginning to fall behind in its polish, it more than makes up for it with its incredible art direction. It's weird, slightly creepy at points, but scenically stunning. The creatures, the plant life, the rock formations. Sometimes you'll be exploring and you'll just have to stop and stare at how beautiful everything is. Then you remember the longer you sit there, the more likely you are to be put through a creature's intestines. The other half of what makes a game so immersive is the sound quality, and yet again, they knock it out of the fucking park.
Welcome aboard, Captain. All systems online.
A bit later we'll talk about some of the sounds that are permanently cemented into every Subnautica player's brains forever, but for now that's enough technical talk. Let's jump back into the gameplay. The game starts you off in the safe shallows, but as the name implies, if there's safe shallows, then surely there must be unsafe, not shallows. And boy are there. For now though, you can stay in your comfort zone while you learn the ropes. Subnautica first and foremost is a survival game. You have the classic water and food meter to occasionally annoy you and force you to remember that you're a human being. The way to get food in the early game revolves around dropping into the ocean and catching yourself a fish to cook. But to get water, you need to find a very specific type of fish, which somehow turns into a water bottle. Later in the game you'll get some vegan options, but just know, this, like in almost every survival game ever, is extremely annoying. And I would say 95% of my deaths in this game come from starvation. The other bar here on the UI is for oxygen. This is your timer for drowning. Thankfully you can acquire increasingly large tanks for deep dives. The gameplay loop of Subnautica could be summarized as this: get resources, build cool thing. Use cool thing to access better resources or do things more conveniently. This sounds painfully simple, but it's a ton of fun. Sure, half my time is spent cracking random rocks, but damn it, that giant underwater fortress isn't gonna build itself. In order to increase your chances of surviving, the game forces you to explore the map, both to unlock new technology and to acquire the resources to build it. Your first objective is to make a repair tool and fix up your life pods, that way you can communicate with the other life pods and ships. Now Subnautica is a really weird example of a survival game with a completely optional plot. You could in theory ignore every single event that happens, but the game punishes you for doing so. Now that our life pod is fixed up and the radio's working, every once in a while you'll get a message on the radio.
Continue to monitor for emergency transmissions from other life pods.
Plan pre-recorded distress call.
I'm over here stroking my dick. I got lotion on my dick right now. I'm just stroking my shit.
Much like Earth's oceans, the oceans of this alien planet suck. And as you'll find out through playing the game, landing in the safe shallows was a pretty lucky break for you. Other life pods weren't so lucky.
It is hot as hell in this funky ass, hot ass room I'm in. Is that the Grim Reaper?
When a life pod's distress signal reaches you, the game pings its location on the map. This is how the game invites you out of your comfort zone and into the open ocean. Your reward for this is usually a new piece of tech, whether it be in the life pod itself or in a wreckage nearby. If there's an important location, this is how the game makes you aware of it. I've always thought that the way this game blends survival and horror is pretty brilliant. Imagine in this ocean, there was nothing threatening at all. Going to trek across the map for a blueprint for like a nuclear reactor or something would feel super boring, it'd be like a chore. But in Subnautica, the ocean is never safe. There's always a threat of something. It really does feel like an adventure. There's stakes and you have to overcome your fear and venture into uncharted territory. But this game doesn't have any stupid, random, unexplained ways of you getting to unlock all this stuff. Everything makes total sense. The Aurora, your ship, had a substantial amount of equipment on it. Mining drills, submarines, power loader suits. But if you crawl around these wrecks enough, you'll find a few pieces of intact equipment that you can scan and reconstruct. Throughout your exploring, to keep the game from feeling too empty, your PDA fills you in on prominent info and contributes some of the game's most iconic lines, and strangely enough, its only source of comedy.
Congratulations, survivor. You have exceeded your weekly exercise quotient by 500%. Data indicates that swimming was your favorite activity.
But of course, to keep the game interesting, the developers needed to add a couple of hostile enemies to keep you on your toes. Early builds of Subnautica, interestingly, don't have anything more threatening than stalkers to harass you. It's a legitimately peaceful, serene game. But in 2015 for the crash site update, everything changed with the addition of Subnautica's most iconic enemy, the Reaper Leviathan. At this point in the game's development, the crash site contained all the high-tier loot, so to gatekeep it, the developers wanted to add some kind of deterrent, something to make you second-guess your choices. And as a result, they created one of the most terrifying things in any game ever. This one creature is single-handedly responsible for Subnautica's success and its legacy. It's all over the game's merchandise and even the star creature on the album cover. Markiplier or Jacksepticeye freaking the hell out over this thing is probably half the reason anyone knows about this game. The creature is fast, fucking huge, and uniquely has grabbing mandibles, contributing to its iconic silhouette. But a lot of people don't know just how realistic a Reaper is. Subnautica's Reaper Leviathan was inspired by a real period in Earth history known as the Cambrian Explosion, a short 21 million year time in the fossil record that saw a boom in biodiversity. This led to what can only be described as an arms race among a few different predators. Looking at this creature here, I can't say with any certainty, but to me it's pretty clear that these were a big source of inspiration. To circle back around to the Reaper Leviathan, as incredible as this thing is from a presentation standpoint, it's just kinda useless, which is primarily due to the way this game is structured. Subnautica has a story to it. There's a few set locations that you absolutely need to visit in order to beat the game. An experienced player knows where all of these things are and how to get to them quickly. The problem is, if you know what you're doing, it's completely possible to beat this game and never once see a Reaper. And if you happen to get very lucky, you'll at most have a close encounter with them once or twice, which doesn't necessarily equate it to being a deadly one. Because if you stay calm, the Reaper just can't do anything. I'm serious, you can try this yourself. Don't run from the Reapers. Just sit still and walk around them. Those mandibles aren't doing shit. It's honestly kind of embarrassing for them. Or better yet, get your hands on a stasis rifle and they're almost a non-factor. In the lore, these things are supposed to be incredible trackers, having followed someone all the way back to their base before. But when you play the game, I'm not even sure these things have object permanence. Now, of course, this is sort of a cynical perspective. A first-time player will 100% find Reapers by accident and have no idea how to deal with them. But the repeat player might as well pretend they don't exist. But if you watch my footage, you'll occasionally see me bump into some of these things in the wild. And why is that? Well, this brings us to the first of a few mods that I think are absolutely essential to play this game today. Persistent Reapers. This mod it's genius to me. Persistent Reapers completely removes all of the boundaries that Reapers patrol in. Not only that, but you can make them way better trackers while you're at it. This means that Reapers can actually roam the sea and show up in places that you'll never expect. What the fuck it? Oh shit! This mod makes the game. When you no longer know where the Reapers are, your brain starts going into full prey mode and starts seeing them everywhere. Is that just a weird bending of light in the distance, or is that a Reaper tail? When a Reaper is in a kelp forest, you aren't going to see it at all, and a bunch of waving, forked plants are almost mean. To the point where I can't help but feel that this was the original idea for the game. Having played with this on, I will never ever play this game without it again. It reignites that magic that makes the game so great your first time around. And while we're on the topic of mods, there's a couple other ones that I think are must-haves today. As I mentioned earlier, this game's getting a little old, and now some of the graphics have started to look a little weird and blurry at points. If you give it enough time, you'll get used to it, but we live in the modern age. We don't have to deal with this shit. The best way to combat this is a completely free program that literally everyone should be using, called Reshade. This is completely free to download, and there's plenty of presets to try out. I mean, just look at this game. Stunning, right? Now let's turn Reshade off and, it's all soupy. Turn it back on and it's crisp and it's beautiful. Next is a great mod called De-Extinction. This is a mod that adds all of the cut, scrapped creatures that were just sitting around in the game's code back into the game in a more finished state. This just gives some better variety in the fish you'll see swimming around, and a few predators to keep away from. Overall, fantastic stuff. The final mod I think you should give a chance is the Weather mod. This is as simple as it sounds. In vanilla Subnautica, the weather is constantly calm. There's no cloudy days, rain, thunder. Nothing. It's just sunny all the time like San Francisco or Philadelphia allegedly. This mod rectifies that completely. You have no idea how much more immersive this game is when it's not just clear sunny skies every day. None of these are mandatory or anything, but I think immersion is what makes horror work. And when the ocean becomes so terrifying, it becomes crucial to build yourself some shelter, which Subnautica has some excellent depth with. Sure, you could just get away with a single boring tube, or you could be like me and roleplay like you're on underwater MTV Cribs. Multiple levels, glass observation rooms, a moon pool for vehicle storage, a water elevator down a cliff? Is it necessary? Absolutely not. Is it awesome? Absolutely yes. But the primary focus of the game is exploration, and to accomplish deep dives you need to acquire increasingly useful vehicles. There's the initial Sea Glide, which runs on a single handheld battery. We have the Sea Moth, your first submersible, but it has an incredibly shallow depth tolerance. Then you have the Cyclops, a giant fucking submarine. This thing is more or less a mobile base. You can grow food on it, build storage, add a bed, and then go and park it wherever you need. Which is great, because you're definitely gonna need it, because the further deep you go, the more fucked up things seem to get. As you're watching this, you're probably not yet sold on the idea that Subnautica is a horror game, and to be honest with you, I kinda have to agree. The Reapers are scary, sure, but they're pretty avoidable and the rest of the game is pretty laid back. But eventually, this game has a turning point when you need to start going deeper, exploring new areas, and hearing shit like this.
Biodiversity in this region is unusually low. Cause unknown.
This is where the game gets terrifying. What do you mean, biodiversity is unusually low? What does that mean? You're just left chewing on that for a minute. Why is this area less biodiverse? Is there something wrong with the water? Or maybe there's something down there, eating everything else. This is mean, and the game knows exactly what it's doing. Of course, the lower you go, the more likely you are to encounter this game's creepier enemies, but the game plays its hand just right. All of your early game objectives are surface level, calling you to investigate the mountain island, check out the surrounding biomes, and get some basic equipment you'll need later, like laser cutters. But the game makes a massive tonal shift when you receive a signal from a nearby ship, the Sunbeam, who's coming to pick you up.
This is Avery Quinn of Trading Ship Sunbeam. Aurora, do you read? Over? Nothing but vacuum. These Altera ships.
The game even gives you a giant countdown on your screen to make sure you don't miss the rescue. Like, oh man, I can't wait to get out. Well, That sucks. Oh, that is definitely what shot down our ship, isn't it? So here's the game's first major twist. Aliens. Not the they're still here kind, the they were here a long time ago and they left behind some cool infrastructure kind of stuff. Because I'm guessing it wasn't the Reapers who built the giant fucking space gun. It's very Jak and Daxter if you've ever played those games, and they're even called precursors here too. A quick investigation inside the gun reveals that these aliens placed the entire planet on quarantine. Nothing comes in, nothing goes out. Which raises the obvious question of, what the fuck are we quarantining? Well, that's the game's twist number 2. The whole planet has space AIDS. And as you find out, you too have been infected with space AIDS. The good news is, if this is space AIDS, you're like a goddamn intergalactic Magic Johnson. This impacts your gameplay 0%. However, from a story and design perspective, this is awesome. Some creatures you can find in the wild are so visibly infected with this bacteria they look like something you'd see in a Mucinex commercial. The rest of your time on planet 4546b is spent attempting to cure this disease and get the fuck out. But the game still has plenty of surprises to throw your way. Like the wrecked Aurora, it was running a nuclear reactor, and now that it's crashed, the whole thing is one step away from Chernobyl. Would you believe me if I said this game forces you to crawl inside the wreckage, put out the fires, and navigate all the way to the core to fix it? Remember that the extent of Riley's professional qualifications are changing light bulbs. This is a crazy jump. When I play this game, I always think to myself, man, the music in this game is so good. But then after, I'll go to put some of it on my OST playlist and I'll listen back to it and realize it's all just ambience. See, it's basic, but you actually couldn't craft more fitting music for this game. But then you listen to some of the late game music. Yeah, that's the sound of, you weren't supposed to be here. The final twist of this game is your plunge into the depths. You go from 100 meters being deep, scary territory to finding yourself over 1,000 meters down. The sunlight disappears, the natural looking creatures disappear, and any possible sense of safety is up there with them. And the creatures get fucking weird. Meet the crab squid. It's got the body of a crab, the membrane of a squid, and it disables your electronics when it gets too close. But here's the thing, this kind of horrible nightmare fuel looks vaguely possible. If tomorrow this shit got discovered in like the Marianas Trench, everyone would just be like, yep, no, that checks out. At some point throughout the game, you'll stumble into a biome called the blood kelp. Just imagine the kelp forest from earlier, but it's going through a big emo streak. The blood kelp is eerie as hell, but it's also your gateway to the game's most visually stunning location, the Lost River. An underground river flowing through caverns 1,000 meters down, and it's beautiful. Here you'll find new resources, new plants and fish, and oh, holy Jesus Christ, what is that? The second major Leviathan in this game is the Ghost Leviathan. This is a 50-foot bioluminescent hammer-headed predator. And again, if this thing gets discovered tomorrow and shows up on CNN, 0 people would be shocked. But this guy here, this is a juvenile Ghost Leviathan. There are other, much bigger, not juvenile Ghost Leviathans out there. But sadly, you never get to see the juvenile and adult Ghost Leviathans interact. I mean, could you imagine? Could bring a whole new meaning to catch a predator. This here happens to be their nesting grounds. But as you explore the Lost River, you'll frequently find that, oh shit, there were some giant fucking creatures around here at one point. Like, to the extent that I have no idea how they would have fit anywhere or done literally anything. But I mean, just look at how visually stunning this all is. Even if it's dangerous, I have no desire to turn back. There's just so much cool stuff, culminating with you finding the remnants of a second alien base, the Disease Research Facility. I'm actually finding it really hard to put this game's experience into words because, on paper, the game is just hilariously basic. The story could literally be summarized as, you go through the ocean, then you go through a cave for a while and see some cool things. But the mystique and atmosphere of the game just keep it so entertaining. Again, the game relies on you to piece the puzzle together on this place. Why is it clearly damaged? What were they trying to do here? Who the hell were these people? The answers are pretty clearly stated in the logs for this game, but you could in theory just monkey brain your way through it and piece it together. You have space age. The whole world has space age. And this is a disease research facility. That makes a lot of sense. They have specimens of most of the creatures you encountered up to this point, and the remains of some other creatures you definitely haven't. Technically speaking, you can actually miss this place if you're not careful. Nothing inside here is actually essential for the game to progress, but it's full of little lore tidbits. For example, it becomes very evident that the aliens before you were the people building the warpers. Oh, right, I totally forgot to mention those before, didn't I? The warpers are the single worst creature in this entire game. These stupid purple robots swim around the ocean and try to kill anything infected with space age. However, to make sure that they're as annoying as humanly possible, these things can teleport you outside of your vehicle and immediately shank you. Most of the time, this is like a 5-second minor inconvenience as you say to yourself, oh right, I forgot they could do that. Then there's the times where you're scaling a cliff with your prawn suit and they teleport you out as you watch your prawn suit fall all the way back down. Then what you're saying to yourself is, oh Jesus Christ, I fucking hate this game. Then they teleport you out and frame one kill you. Then what you're saying is, what kind of smooth-brained goddamn moron designed this shit? I'm sorry, I really hate these things. Now, up to this point, I've tried to keep things largely positive, but I think it's finally time I rip off the band-aid. Subnautica has some very evident design flaws. For example, some vehicles in this game are almost hilariously better than others, and some are pretty much useless for any returning player. The biggest example of this is the Seamoth. The Seamoth is absolutely iconic. It's probably the most recognizable vehicle in the game. This thing serves zero purpose past the early game. I usually don't even bother building one of these personally, but I did it in this playthrough just for you viewers. But when mine got fucked up by a Reaper, I was just like, who cares? All vehicles in Subnautica have a maximum depth you can go to before the hull starts getting crushed from the water pressure. The hierarchy goes as follows: Seamoth, Cyclops, Prawn Suit. You can get upgrades to increase the depth you can go to with each type of vehicle, but it's usually not worth it. Why would I spend valuable resources on upgrading a Seamoth to go a little further below the surface, but still not as far as I need it to go for the story? I'm just gonna make a Prawn Suit with the max depth upgrades and call it a day. There is literally no other vehicle you will ever need. And on top of this, the Prawn Suit is the only vehicle that lets you drill high tier resources. What is the drawback on only using this thing? Why isn't there literally any incentive to bring or make other vehicles like the Cyclops? This thing costs more resources, it's slower, it's a pain in the ass to recharge, and it provides minimal benefits. This just feels like a massive oversight, and it's one of the game's biggest issues. This game is riddled with some weird bugs. On PC, it's not so bad, but on PS4 back in the day, I've seen vehicles fall through the floor, never to be seen again. However, a really bad bug still exists in the audio. Running out of oxygen gives this little muffling effect on the sound. Surfacing and getting oxygen usually makes it go away, but sometimes the audio stays muffled way longer than it should. This might sound like a minor complaint, but it is super annoying. Somehow the subtitles in this game frequently desync from what's being said, which just shouldn't happen. And there's a lot of other stuff that just has no excuse not to be patched out by now. This game is almost bipolar between its story and survival aspects. Am I supposed to take this as a story-focused game at its core? Well, that would be interesting, but then why would I bother interacting with the base building, blind exploration, or any other optional mechanics? Do I take it as a Minecraft-style game where building, exploring, and automating is the main focus? Well, then do I ignore the various in-your-face missions the game gives you? I mean, for Christ's sake, this game has an ending. Am I, as a player, seriously expected to just look at everything I made and be like, alright, bye? That just feels weird to me. But then on the flip side, unlike Minecraft, which really kind of only starts after you quote-unquote beat the primary objective, Subnautica doesn't have any cool things for you to work towards. There's no super scary area with exclusive items, no mob farms, and a building system that's functional rather than creatively fulfilling. This game is confused at its core. A subject of some debate is whether or not the story of Subnautica is good or not, and in my opinion, it is decisively no. After the disease center, your next trip takes you into the inactive lava zone, a region where the game promises but never delivers on its biggest scare. Upon getting into the fiery abyss, you'll find some skeletons of some Reaper Leviathans. Obviously, the implication is, oh holy shit, something down here is so scary it can reliably kill a Reaper Leviathan? The problem is, the creature is just the biggest nothing burger ever. This is the Sea Dragon Leviathan, a giant creature that can shoot fire at you. The thing is, this thing is like painfully avoidable, kinda derpy looking, and way easier to keep track of compared to either of the other two Leviathans. And something I discovered while getting this footage is that this thing is a dog shit hunter. Like, look at this. I am standing perfectly still, and it still just refuses to hit me. I mean, it'll yell at me, but then just pussy out at the last second. Look at this.
Do it! Do it! Kill me! I'm here! Kill me! Come on! Do it now!
The only way I could get it to ever attack me is when I went out of my way to stay in front of it as it tried to ignore me. I have seen some broken enemy AI in my time, but this might take the cake. This thing is clearly designed to be the scariest thing you could run into. In reality, it's a creature that I sometimes have to remind myself even exists. You might be asking why we need to keep going further. The answer to that comes in the game's final plot point. The game's final twist is aliens. Again, this time it turns out one of the creatures the precursors were studying happens to have telepathic powers, and it's somehow aware of you specifically and is contacting you in vague messages to find it.
I am what you seek. Want to help you.
The primary containment facility is located at the very bottom of the map in the active lava zone. This leads to you encountering the only other sentient being in the game.
Are you here to play? Others came here once. They built these walls. They played alone. They bored me. Now they're gone. And instead, we have you. We are curious whether you swim with the current or fight against it as they did.
This creature is known as the Sea Emperor Leviathan. It's Subnautica's largest creature, and it's supposed to be your friend more or less. However, in a kind of funny twist, in the original Subnautica trailer, this thing was meant to be some kind of predator. I don't know, it's just kind of goofy to see it like this. The problem is, this thing's writing is just so dog shit. So the Sea Emperor Leviathan is the one and only creature that is completely and entirely immune to space age. This is due to a special enzyme it makes, and is also produced by its children. This thing is fully aware of precisely what it needs for its children to hatch. Its children could cure the entire planet, and God knows how many other planets from this bacteria by producing its enzymes. And it openly states it just didn't help out. It let entire species die.
The others built a passage to reach the world outside. I asked them for this freedom, but they could not hear me. If you help us, I will give you freedom that the others tried in vain to take.
The game tries to explain this by saying that the Sea Emperor tried to telepathically talk with the precursors, but couldn't, due to the ever-interfering powers of somehow. The precursors had trapped this thing and its young in the habitat we discover it in, and they just kept hoping they'd eventually figure it out. This requires an almost hilarious amount of disbelief you have to suspend. So first, this thing is clearly the last of its kind, because if there were others, I'm sure this would have already been cured. Next is that this creature somehow has incredible telepathic skills. This means telepathy is real, and it works without any measurable energy that the aliens would have definitely picked up on. That's already a jump. Then we have to assume that these aliens are just so brain dead that they decided to trap their only hope of survival in an aquarium and hope they could successfully hatch the eggs. Do you have any idea how many creatures on Earth can't reproduce in captivity? A lot. Let alone the amount of species that will just straight up die in captivity. To take your one and only hope at survival and throw it in a fish tank is fucking insane to me. And also, the scientists take one of the Sea Emperor's eggs and they cut it open and fully study, the fetus. Surely they have the technology to sequence this thing's DNA, or at the bare minimum just make the enzyme. This is a civilization that we've seen accomplish teleportation. You're trying to tell me they couldn't figure this out? And beyond that, I hate to be this guy, but this just really isn't how bacteria works. Bacteria doesn't want to be lethal. It wants to be parasitic and survive in a toast. Most bacteria isn't trying to become more lethal out here like Plague Inc. It becomes way less lethal but harder to kill. If it kills everything it's using as a host, it eventually dies out. I'm sure you get it by now. The story of this game doesn't hold up to even the most basic surface level logic. To its credit, however, I think the acting performance laid down by Lady Minella is fantastic.
My young are swimming for the shallows. I thank you. Their freedom is my end. What will it be like, I wonder, to go to sleep and never wake up? Perhaps next we meet, I will be an ocean current, carrying seas to a new land, or a creature so small it sees the gaps between the grains of sand. Farewell.
From this point onward, Subnautica has but one final objective: build the rocket and escape from 4546B. And to do this, you need to gather pretty much every resource in the game, but I already drilled most of this stuff, so for me it was just a matter of putting it together and engaging the final sequence.
Ready to launch on your command, Captain. Launch in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time capsule jettison. Caution, approaching orbital debris field. Orbital debris field clear. Performing gravity turn maneuver. Confirm destination coordinates. Nearest interstellar phase gate. Engaging ion boosters in 3, 2, 1.
What is a wave without the ocean? A beginning without an end. They are different, but they go together. Now you go among the stars, and I fall among the sand. We are different, but we go together.
And that is Subnautica. The Sea Emperor is dead for sure, Riley escapes, and the game sets up for Below Zero. While a lot of people seem to really glaze this game, on a replay, I gotta say, this game's age is finally catching up to it. To the point where in 2026, I'm not even sure this game is worth a replay for most people. The story is kind of middling, and quite frankly, what value is there in the exploration in a game where the major threats are just one singular enemy type? What value is there to base building when there's not much creative ability, and no real purpose in building a larger base or diverse locations? Maybe sometime in the future we'll talk about Below Zero, but that game suffered from a lot of the same issues, if not a little bit worse. However, with the recent lawsuit victory over Krafton, the development gameplay of Subnautica 2 has me super hopeful. So if I'm given the opportunity, wink wink, I'd love to talk about that game when it comes out. Well, that's gonna do it for today. Next time we'll be talking about Star Wars The Force Unleashed, so stay tuned for that. But before I sign off here, I just wanted to say thank you all so much for all of the recent support and kind words on the channel. It really does mean a lot. Some of the comments I see genuinely are what get me out of bed and working on these videos at all. And they give me all the motivation I need. So I just wanted to get a little mopey, be an idiot, and make a fool of myself. That's what I wanted to do here. So thank you all so much for just being a great community. If you guys out there have any games you'd love for me to talk about, go ahead and leave them down in the comments below. I'll give it a think. But for now, that's gonna do it. Any and all support would be amazing, but no one can force ya, and I will see you all in the next one.